GT the Vibe podcast coming at you with another episode, and had a great episode rocking this morning with my crew. We talked about a lot of great things and kind of went over some relationship stuff, but I saw something on the news that I kind of wanted to speak on real quick. There's a pastor out of South Carolina. His wife killed herself, is what he told his congregation. She was found a mile away from where she lives at. So I'll let this kind of news kind of go through it, and then we'll give the spiel based on my law enforcement experience at the end.
After her body was found in a state park about a week ago. Pastor John Paul Miller told his congregation that his wife, 30-year-old Mica, took her own life after struggling with mental illness. But her friends and family say otherwise and want police to, quote, deeply investigate what happened. More than 100 people rallying outside John Paul's church in Myrtle Beach, demanding justice for Mica. This happened on Sunday. Our very own Kelsey Kernstein has been digging into the story. Kelsey, some pretty startling court documents revealing what may have happened just before Mica died.
Yeah, hey there, Hannah. They really are startling. So according to reports, just days before she died, she filed multiple times for illegal separation from her husband. We're also learning that she even filed for divorce back in October. Then Mica posted on Facebook about abuse just weeks ago. The video offers advice for people who may be in an abusive relationship, and some believe that this video is proof that Mica was in one herself.
God hates divorce. But why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that?
So according to the police report, 30-year-old Mica Miller died on April 27th. We know that her body was found in Lumber River State Park in North Carolina. That is just about an hour away from where the Millers live in Myrtle Beach. Just days after she died, her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, told his parishioners that she had taken her own life and blamed it on her years of mental health struggles. However, police say they are still investigating how Mica died.
I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. Y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
And this is interesting, too. A Facebook group called Justice for Mica pointed out a statement from her obituary that they believe was odd. It reads, she would praise her husband after every church service, telling him he was the best preacher in the world, in parentheses, even if it wasn't true. She also told him he was the funniest preacher in the world, in parentheses, even if that wasn't true either.
All right, so I'm going to give my little 2 cents, my little spill on this thing, man. Number one, so they said she filed for divorce back in October. I don't know if it's granted or what, but I know divorce is a negative, is frowned upon inside the church. So I know she probably had it would take a lot for her to come to that conclusion. But it never really said if she ever got granted it, which probably didn't because they're still together. And then it said file for legal separation a few days before she was found dead in North Carolina. So real quick before I dive in too deep. So essentially, you have to look at it from 2 different angles here, right? Number one, her husband's a pastor of the church, so he's a powerful dude, right? Can the word of God be used to call somebody to harm themselves? Absolutely, it sure can. 110% can be used. It's what you have to understand is that how powerful that is. So her husband, he goes to I call it cemetery school, but it's seminary, but I call it cemetery because they don't teach you anything in there about God, to be honest with you. They really teach you more about death itself, and then you come out here and get rich or die trying, essentially. But so he went to cemetery or seminary school, and so he learns the theology behind the Bible and God and what they believe God is, and so you can use the Bible to dictate and control people. It was used in slavery. So when you look at blacks, African Americans back in the day, it was biblical. The white people utilized the Bible to keep black people enslaved, to make them serve their masters, to make them honor and respect their masters. Although, we knew it wasn't right, it wasn't correct the way it was being done, but they utilized the Bible to do that. So can the word of God be used to call somebody to take their own life? Yeah. Because think about it like this: if her husband is going into her mind and he's talking to her about divorce, basically saying, It's death. If you want to divorce me, she clearly wants to divorce this dude. So she may have thought that death was her only way out of the situation. Right? That's the type of crap that's going on in churches nowadays, man. That's why it's hard for me to even get behind going to one. Because you never know who the person is behind the pulpit and what their mindset is, what they believe, right? They go to cemetery school and learn some things, and they learn things that come from the world, right? And then they try to make it biblical. And so, do I believe that it's possible that he utilized his power and authority that was given to him by God, because he's supposed to be over his wife anyway, but also the word of God too, to try to guilt her into saying, okay, the only way out of this marriage is death? Probably. That's definitely a possibility. And so you look at it as, she had spoken about, abuse. She's filed multiple times for separation. There were some police reports that came out talking about slashed tires and then a tracking device found on her vehicle. That's the level of control there. This is just absolutely crazy. And so, is it possible that her husband could have put her mind into a place where she felt like that was the only way out? Absolutely, it's possible. 110%. See, what people are out here saying, he may have done it himself. He didn't have to do it himself for him to be a part of the reason why it was done, right? That's the mindset that I'm taking. That's the train of thought that I have, because I know the power of the word, because I read the Bible. I know God, but I also know the power of the world. And when you give that power to men, right, men who have their own desires behind it, they can cause things like this to happen. I also know that, there are murderers in the church. BTK in Wichita, Kansas was going to church, and that dude murdered multiple women. And he was sending stuff to the news about it, right? And so you can't say the demons don't get into your church building, or no, your building that's built out of brick and mortar, right? It's not actually the church. It's just your building. Anything can come in. And so, yes, she might have been dealing with some mental health stuff, but as having your husband be a pastor, you'd feel like he'd be able to help her with those issues that she's dealing with the problems that she's dealing with. You feel like that he'd be able to help her and assist her in starting to get better, right? Through the grace and power of God, like he should have been doing that. But clearly that probably wasn't top of mind for him. Medication was key, right? So he went to cemetery school and didn't really learn much about how to treat his wife when she's going through some mental health stuff. You got to be there. You got to be present. You got to pray for her. These are things that you should do that he probably wasn't doing. He was probably trying to guilt her because she wanted to leave. Think about it. I mean, you could sit there and use the Bible as the means of a weapon to try to get somebody to stay. And then she feels like her only way out is, I got to die, because it says death do us part. That's what it says. So I must got to die to get out of here. Because clearly she's tried multiple times over and over again to leave the relationship, and something or another, we don't know all the details, but one thing led to another, and she ended up not being able to leave. Till now she's actually able to leave. Now she's able to leave, and nobody can control that. That's the crazy part to me, is that people are thinking that, he killed her, he didn't have to do it. He didn't have to put his hand on a trigger and pull it, right? He didn't have to do that. Could she have been led to this position where she felt like that was the only way for her to get out? Could she have been led? Absolutely. She could definitely be led to this position where she felt in her own heart of hearts that this was it. The only way for me to get out, like, I want to live, but I can't live with him. So my only way out is for me to take my own life. Is that a possibility? Absolutely. Absolutely. Medical examiner came out and said that cause of death was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. In my experience, and when I've talked to people that have experienced this law enforcement career longer than me, what I know is that women typically don't kill themselves with a gun. That's normally a man thing, number one. Am I saying that it can't happen? No. It is my belief, based on everything that I've seen and heard on the story, that the word of God was probably used against this woman, and he probably backed her into a corner where she felt like the only way out was death. Right? And to justify him being able to say, okay, I can move on now later on, death did do him part now. So that takes the sin away from him in this divorce, right? Because there's only certain reasons for your divorce is biblical. And so that takes the sin away from him. So could he have coerced her into doing this? Yes, it's very strong possibility that he probably did coerce her into doing this, utilizing what he learned in cemetery school and also putting together the word. I feel bad for this young lady. She had a lot of life left ahead of her. I feel bad for her family. There was obviously some things going on in the relationship that wasn't right. And to me, if you're a pastor and your house ain't in order, you need to step down and get your house in order. How you gonna not have your own home and house in order, but you trying to have the order in the house of God? If you can't get your own house in order, you don't need to be preaching. Now, they did ask him to step down. He's a former pastor now, last I heard, which is good, right? He should have been a former pastor back in October when she filed for divorce, because clearly this man's house ain't in order, right? He gonna go up there and preach in the pulpit every day like he's doing great things, like he's this great guy taking care of business at home, when he's not, right? How many pastors out there are doing the same thing, right? Acting like they're holier than thou. Oh, I'm better than you, right? Because I went to cemetery school. No, you went to death school, so you learned some death in there, most definitely. But I feel bad. My condolences to her family, her kids, for their loss. You know, they're going to grow up without a mom now, right? They're going to grow up without a mom. And their dad, who knows what happens to that guy? It's between him and the Lord above, whatever he did or whatever role he played in this. People can be driven to suicide. They absolutely positively can. People can be pushed, poked, prodded, and driven to suicide. It is definitely possible. I've seen it. I've heard about it. It's in this situation, I believe it is likely that this woman was driven to do this because she felt like this was her only way out. Because her husband's powerful. How do you think the wives of some of these Pastor Joel Osteen, Pastor Mike Tile, how do you guys think their wives feel? Right, these dudes are powerful men, utilizing the word of God. How do you think their wives feel? If they want to leave, man, you know how impossible it would be to leave. You're leaving a pastor. You know how bad that looks on you. What the community that you live in would look at you like and think you're probably wrong, because most of them think their pastor is always right? Pastor is always 100% real. He's always right. That's the mindset that a lot of these people take in their church. Some women adore their pastor more than they do their husband. That's the world we live in. That's the type of crap that goes on in the Western world. God did not say that. That is not even biblical. Yet, that is what happens because women love power. And so when you put these men in power over them, it's easy for them to blur the lines. Right? That's why people have affairs with their bosses. Women have affairs with their boss all the time. And so you get that in the church. So now this all-powerful dude has a wife that's struggling. He can't even help her with her struggles. How are he going to help you? How is he going to help you? I'm sorry, I'm getting amped up about this thing. How in the world is this dude going to help you? He can't even help his own wife. Right? He can't even help his own wife. The person that he sleeps in the same bed as, the person he chose to live his life with, he can't even help her. And probably drove her to taking the steps toward getting out, because it's the only way she felt like she can get out. The only way she felt like she can get out probably is death. Look who she's married to. And ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Again, this is GT the Vibe Podcast. If you like our stuff, like, subscribe to the channel. I'm keeping it real on this one. I have strong feelings toward church life, and cemetery school. There's so many people out here that think that you have to go to cemetery school to be able to preach the word of God. That's for another podcast, another day, but I can definitely go in on that. This dude clearly, he was a pastor of a leader of a church, of a group of people, and couldn't even help his wife. His wife needed him the most, and he couldn't even help his wife. Get it together, man. Get it together. Again, it's GT The Vibe Podcast, another episode. My condolences to Mike's family. Beautiful woman, probably a great mom, probably a great wife, tried her best, gave it her all. But sometimes you get in interlock with the wrong person, and that person can be a religious person. Religious people are more dangerous than you guys may think. This GT the Vibe podcast again. I'm sorry I'm getting ranty today, but I'm out.